So we'll wait for the beat to drop a little bit. Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We are live. We're kicking off the live series. First time here. Everything's working. Today, we're talking Mourning in Margaritaville, drug-sniffing dogs that go a little too far, and the shift in the power dynamic between labor unions and their employer just as we wrap up Labor Day. But let me introduce my co-host and my good friend, David Cunningham. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, happy to be here as always, even though I am a little bit slow over this Labor Day weekend here. So I got my energy here. We're good to go. And I would like to introduce our producer behind the screen, smashing buttons, Brian.
How's it going, people? Got that energy up? It's going to be a good day. Good podcast.
That's right. That's right. Just for the heck of it, Brian, play that video. Remember? It's supposed to be me and him and you, and then the third video. Yeah, guys, we're practicing, so I want Brian to go through the motions. This is the first episode, so the only way we keep forgetting little bits, and the only way we're not going to is to make sure we do them. So,
Snazzy.
There we go.
We're back.
I love that we now have the ability to see what he's doing, so it really keeps this thing a lot more tethered. I can assure you, between the user engagement and keeping this on track, we're going to be in a much stronger pace. But let's kick it off. It's a sad day in Margaritaville.
It is a very sad day. We lost a real one here.
A real one. $1 billion one.
Well, we did lose one.
A mogul.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah.
I was in Nashville over the weekend, and we heard about it, and we had to, mourn the day. And we went and got a margarita at Margaritaville. I can tell you that's probably going to be the last time I go there because it was so expensive for a very not so good margarita. Oof. But it was great to cheers the man. They had a little effigy, the little plastic light up candles and a nice black and white printed off of Kodak printer in the back there.
Really went all out for the man.
Exactly. That's what I thought. I'm like, nobody had you would think the franchise would be like, all right, just in case this happens,
breaking place,
we should have a way to commemorate the guy. But it was just like a chair, lonely in the back. Yeah, it was rough.
Oof,
but we cheersed him. Me and Will, we were there. Anyway, the reason we bring it up because yes, as a Jimmy Buffett fan, we made sure we're drinking our bourbon today out of margarita glasses. We're wearing our Hawaiian shirt. I had to still represent the Browns because we're kicking off a season here. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what kind of season, but a season. So why are we talking Jimmy Buffett besides just being sad and mourning someone that we really liked? He had a really rare skin cancer. And what's interesting about the story is he kind of struggled in his final years there, like 4 years or so. Struggling alongside his sister, who also had a different type, but also rare skin cancer. And he went through a whole lot of treatment, and the diagnosis was called Merkel cell carcinoma. And it's a rare form of skin cancer that has a high risk of reoccurring, and it metastases within 2 or 3 years within its diagnosis. So it's a quick progressing type of skin cancer. And the reason it kind of hits home with me is my grandmother, she struggled with skin cancer, and my mother had a few run-ins in the past couple of years with skin cancer. And between the two of them, there were some episodes that got pretty bad. Now, it's an interesting conversation to have, because then we're going to get into some of the details that came from the FDA, and they've tried to throw their head in the sand for a long time now in regards to sunscreen, right? So you can't avoid the sun. Ironically, we need the sun. We need vitamin D, and there's this high importance in getting outside.
Yeah, it helps with mental health as well. That's why you have the seasonal depression, because the lack of the sun.
Right. Exactly.
So the sun is absolutely vital.
At the same time, though, we all have a huge variance in genetic variability, right? So I went to Nashville with a friend who's like of Irish descent, redheaded guy.
Mhm.
So he has to fear the sun at all costs. It actually was astonishing me at some points. The one day I was really trying to catch a tan, we had to stop like every 10 minutes, get shade. And it was like a strategic game that you could tell like is in his nature. He's done this a long time. He has to do this. Whereas I'm sitting there trying to soak up as much of it as I can. At the same time, though, I make the jokes with my friends. I don't really need sunscreen, but the truth is I can't go totally without it.
No.
If I go totally without, I've had major problem, like bad episodes of skin poisoning where it bubbles
Ooh.
yeah. And then again, you look at your shoulders and you've now got freckles, as you want to delicately put it. That's kind of what a lot of the material talks about, is you got to watch out for the freckles and
A little leathering of your face. You see someone who gets real old that's been out in the sun a lot. It's not a good look if you're trying to stay youthful.
Keeping of the vein of the Jimmy Buffett world, you go to Key West and it's all the same old men and women with that leather brown, like color of your bourbon skin.
Yeah.
That's like, it's like jerky. You're walking jerky. But anyway, here's the difficult consideration is, I love the sun. We need the sun. A depression follows if you totally avoid the sun. On balance with, you don't want to be the guy from Benchwarmers where he's eating sunscreen and he's hiding under tables. But all of us have different variability, different tolerances, different, need for the sun. So now when we get to the FDA, they're starting to question the safety of these sunscreens. There's some chemicals in them that, and let's start with the first suggestions from the FDA. The safest things to do to protect your skin: clearly seek shade, dress to protect yourself from the sun, and apply sunscreen whenever you can on places that aren't covered by skin or by clothing. But sunscreen, even though it plays a key role, has been finding certain ingredients that are having negative outcomes. Now, when it comes to what they are, there's about 12 major chemicals used in these ingredients. I don't want to go through and list them all. You could, in the description after the episode, you could follow to see what they are. But the takeaway is this: the FDA is taking the steps to ensure that continued safety and efficacy of sunscreen is working, and trying to clear up the confusion around sunscreen, considering there's been a lot of science that has come out to bring about doubt and change the perspective of scientists and the usefulness of sunscreen. So there's been this episode, in short, there's been an episode in time where the FDA, because of financial incentives, have tried to stray away from acknowledging and truly considering what's going on with sunscreen. Now they're forced to accept it because real studies are coming out and being forced in their face.
Well, now we just have we're starting to see the bullet points and the data points of where constant sunscreen use and or just being around this stuff is causing issues, not even just in ourselves, but in the environment too. Like if you go down the beach, Key West in itself, there's different types of sunscreen. There is the coral reef safe sunscreen, and there's the non-coral reef safe sunscreen. I can hardly imagine, if it's not very good for the coral reef, probably not too great to immerse yourself in constantly.
Right.
This is absolutely a point of moderation is such a good thing. And, maybe a little sun doesn't really hurt you, because we're starting to get on opposite ends of the spectrum here. You need those that are just can't stop putting sunscreen on. Oh, I got to be afraid of it for legitimate reasons, and sometimes maybe just fear mongering based on, well, I don't want to get sunburned. And you have the other end of it where it's like, well, screw sunscreen.
Right.
I'll just be
Which is
tan.
me,
That's
and
my
then
sunscreen.
I boil, and then I'm like, I have no shoulders.
It's
On
one of
top
those you don't really learn too much. You get a sunburn, like, that's fine. And then you just keep doing it again. I run into that problem all the time. I'm a one and done sunscreen guy. You just take it once and that's it. No matter how long.
So what
I'm out in the day.
SPF are you going for?
I shoot whatever the wife has. Sometimes 50, sometimes 70. Oof.
Ooh.
I always feel like a loser when I put on 70.
Yeah, you ain't get a tan with that.
You're really just kicking it on. Oh God.
Funniest thing about this conversation is this is a very white conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
But I do want to just wrap with, there's another important consideration when it comes to these sunscreens, and it's that there's a huge variance when it comes to the brands that you're using too. So a lot of this is going to be an ever-evolving consideration. You need to look at what's on your label and be conscious of what are you putting on your skin. The weird thing is, it seems like we're forced with two approaches that inevitably lead to skin cancer. One, that you're clogging your pores with unnecessary chemicals. The other, you're
Overexposure.
Oh yes, overexposing your body to, and again, sun is a radiation that you're cooking yourself with.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're living a Key West life, you're at the most south point of the country. I learned on the day of his death at Margaritaville, the reason he talked about finding his salt shaker is because he had to hide cocaine when the police came and raided his Margaritaville that he was partying at in Key West one time.
Oh.
And he hid it in the salt shaker. And then a waitress did a reshuffling of salt shakers to, I don't know, run a restaurant. And so he had to run around looking for his salt shaker. So that part of the song is seeking the salt shaker for that reason.
That's a spicy bowl of fries right there. A little more than you bargained for, or you're getting a really good deal. It's like, wow, this restaurant's great. The fries just get you hyped.
These are the greatest French fries ever. But so again, if you're living that lifestyle and you're cooking in the Key West sun, it's not surprising that it leads this point. But as somebody that's trying to come up with answers themselves, right? Like, I'm not a billionaire. I'm just a guy. And the thing that stood out to me at Nationals, it's like, this guy, it doesn't get bigger than Jimmy Buffett.
No.
It really doesn't. And the fact that he couldn't even save himself. One, there's twofold to this. It speaks to how damaging that lifestyle is, whether it's the drugs, but even unbalanced with the sun and maybe lack of sleep, whatever it may be, you're living a lifestyle, but also it felt young. And I know that's hard to say that 76 is young, but it felt young.
Well, we have the juxtaposition of Mitch McConnell, Dianne Feinstein, you see them dead people. They're parading him around. You go, well, why Jimmy Buffett? And he's still, I wouldn't call him spry, but definitely he had the energy to still go up on stage, still perform. You're not seeing that with Mitch McConnell. You're not seeing that with some of these politicians. So death is the great equalizer, and unfortunately, cancer, there is no ultimate cure quite yet.
There is no ultimate cure, and that's the scary part. But moving on,
I have one last thing about Jimmy Buffett here, because I think it's very important.
Please,
for a political show, he wasn't very political.
Right?
He was. Did he really talk politics? Was he conservative? Was he liberal? So you have a very popular singer, very popular songwriter. Nothing. Didn't say a word about it. I think that's going to be remembered as we get closer and closer. Everyone has to have an opinion. Like the two of us here, we all have to have an opinion here. He didn't seem to project his opinion, or at least it wasn't controversial for one side or the other. Because he very much played to a conservative crowd. And also, there's some liberal philosophies right in there. Just relax, play along. But him not being overtly political or taking a side, I think we're going to start missing that here the next about decade to 20 years as we keep evolving with our musical discourse.
I love that point. That's a really great point because one, you could tell it benefited his career, but two, we as consumer like that. Like I don't care what the guy who dribbles the ball for my team thinks about economics.
Yeah.
I really don't. In fact, I really would prefer not to know it because I don't want a reason to dislike you. Interestingly enough, it's clearly a financial professional career decision by Jimmy Buffett to stay neutral and while be himself, still do whatever he can to appeal to the other side. I mean, when your content medium is talking about the sensitive, I'm inevitably going to be divisive.
Oh, for sure.
But when you're speaking about margaritas and, just catching a land shark,
having a good time, let be kind of lifestyle, that kind of that island beachy themes. Yeah, it's there's not really no one party staked that political claim yet.
Exactly. And so I agree with your point that it's going to be missed. At the same time, I do think it's advantageous when people with the platform and the influence speak up and use it appropriately. I think it's a delicate line. Once you go over that and you're using it inappropriately, that's where it becomes a problem. But I want to emphasize it's also the way you go about doing it and what it is you're talking about, because there's times where people get praise and they may still be getting praise for only a portion of their audience and losing another part of their audience. You have to acknowledge that. But look at with the Maui situation, you had Oprah and The Rock come out, and I mean, the internet dragged them for calling to regular people to donate big money to support the people struggling in Maui, and they own all this real estate in Maui.
Oh.
They join a financial group with other millionaires and billionaires. So yeah, they go, we are giving 10 million. Yeah, no. A group of us rich people are giving 10 million. We need all of you poor people to muster your bread money together to fix the island that I own about 60% of the real estate. Doesn't go over well with the internet.
No. And that's assuming any of that money is going to end up in charitable. I'd love to see how much money laundering is going on with charitable donations. It's all cash based, hard to trace back, and you don't really want to look into it too much because you want that idea of charity to continue.
Yeah, like that LeBron James Foundation that built a school.
Oh
yeah, it wasn't a guy. It wasn't like some asshole. It was like a group.
Yes.
Wow.
I think we're getting fatigue of the charitable the charities out there. So we're starting to just see more and more of them are.
No. How about this one? This one?
Right.
I disagree with you and agree with you. This is what it is. On the flip side, did you see that liberal clown that dissed Dave Portnoy when he did his one bite review? It went viral like the last week and a half. So Dave Portnoy goes outside and he does his one bite, which is a world-renowned content bit now.
Yep.
And that alone is $1 million business. He goes to other places and rates their businesses. We're talking. So this liberal man comes, and we say this because his Instagram was like psychotic. People did deep dives on it, and we're talking crazy blue-haired type guy.
Okay.
He comes out and starts cussing at Dave Portnoy. You're scum. You do everything wrong. You damage low business people. Like you damn people, and you rate their whole career on one bite, and you could damage a whole profession in a minute. The whole thing, and he's ranting and raving, and this whole crowd of people around him is you do realize he did more for small businesses than anyone else. And they go, well, and anyway, he regrets himself. He goes inside, he comes back, he continues to cuss him out. And I read in a New York Times article that you lied or something. And it was all this hit piece stuff.
Yeah. Long
story short, Dave Portnoy only came out the other end with higher praise. Like they're making shirts about it now. The people that support him have only come to his defense in a stronger fashion. And in the same world where we're tired of donating and what we're tired of it being fake. We want realness.
Yeah.
Dave Portnoy, and exactly to the point as the people in the crowd were saying, during the pandemic, this man did more for small businesses than our government did by creating programs that donated directly to pizza businesses and kept them alive. So in that world, people will come to your defense and support you when they see you are genuine and real and what you're doing is true. It's bullshit when you say you built a school, but it's really Dwayne Wade and all your homies that donated as a tax write-off to the thing in your name. Or the island of $10 million is nothing to billionaires that are all pooling their money together. So I think people are just sick of the phoniness. Brian's got something to say. What's up, Brian?
What do we got, Brian?
I had to finish the thought there, buddy. What's up?
I'm good. I was just
All
trying
right.
to figure out where is this other light?
We're just doing that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
just-
there's no other light, just the one light.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm not coming on.
All right. Well, hey, moving on to the next segment here.
Yeah. So moving on, an Idaho man's conviction for drug possession was vacated because a police drug sniffing dog put its paws on the vehicle. So this is a consideration that predominantly revolves around the Fourth Amendment and unreasonable searches. And so when we were kind of chopping it up before the episode here, the majority of my explanation revolved around the comparison to like a bag. Like, at what point do I have this is all the constitutional consideration to the 14th Amendment and my ability to search.
I think it's the Fourth Amendment.
Sorry, the Fourth Amendment.
Fourth
Yes,
Amendment.
no, it is definitely the Fourth Amendment. It is surrounding those searches. It predominantly the scale is whether or not the search is reasonable, if this is a detention or, you are just stopping me for questioning. So if you were to be stopped personally, there is a different standard for me checking your pocket, than a bag, an item. Also, it depends, are you on private property, public property? What is your physical situation? And to take it a step further than just an outside package, like a bag or a box or a thing, would be like you being in a car. And that's like kind of its own separate legal consideration. But a good analogy would be like considering a bag, right? Like, how do I get into the bag? I could search you as a person, but I can't search the bag.
Yep.
The car makes it a little bit different because you've now agreed to the state. And that's, again, we're not totally free. You've made an agreement with the state with your license to be allowed to use their roads. And with that agreement, there's a certain standard to which I can search your vehicle.
Yep. Similar
Similar to the bag, but a little bit less because you've made an agreement to come on my roads.
It's not technically private property.
Exactly. And the license is kind of that contractual agreement. So in regard to a traffic stop, this consideration, so again, this went to the Supreme Court, and there's going to be a vacation on this conviction because the this drug sniffing dog put its paws on the guy's car. Now, I was trying to explain to Brian, he was asking earlier, it's different than when the dog is triggered by the smell and starts scratching at the car. This is prior to the indication. This is the search. So this is like me grabbing the bag and feeling the bag.
Yep.
At what point do I have the legal ability to feel the bag or go in the bag?
Yep.
And for you to go in the car, this is kind of the agreement. You can't come in the car. Well, I'm not coming in the car. The dog smelled it.
Yep.
So the dog is their loophole. It's the only, they can't even come up with, a radar, an iPhone app can't scan for this scent. There's nothing we can create tool-wise that goes inside and detects the way a dog does. This was their loophole. I never went in your eye. It's kind of like the kid in the back car, like with their sibling. I never touched you. I never touched you. I never touched you. So the police never went in your car, but the dog was triggered.
And the dog is, since they are, by legal definition, they are police officers themselves. They have all the benefits of being a police officer in this regard.
Exactly. So now you have, in this finicky situation, the dog was conducting its search and touched the car. And they are saying that was like feeling the bag, which had a different level of suspicion for you to be able to conduct such a search. So what's cool about this is we've now had a new reconsideration of where the line of this law is, and it makes it very clear that you are to stay out and not touch the vehicle. What'll be interesting is when they can come up with equipment that, what happens when your window goes down and they approach the window? You know, some officers come up and they lean.
Yep.
Some officer, that'll be the next line, right? That there'll be an infringement.
I can look in, I can see. It sounds a lot like they want their cake and eat it too. They definitely want the ability to be able to. It's come down to another question here: is how much authority should we give officers of the law? Except that for every obstacle we put ahead of them to be able to, hold those accountable who are against the law, we are putting up further and further barrier, or putting up protections for those who are absolutely using the law and going against the criminal actions and using that against those. So this is just this one's a real weird one. I think the other thing too, I don't know if the Constitution is really written in language for animals. It's all just people, and how we kind of, the dog is a loophole or just a way we. Are they outside of? I'd love to see how the Supreme Court, even the dissenting opinion, goes against this. Do they go on the angle of, well, we're using this to obstruct the police, or do they go with the angle of that the actual dogs are, since we do recognize them as citizens of the United States, they are in fact under the constitutional protections that we afford ourselves. So there might be, depending on how they write this, there might be some broader animal rights activity going on from just this single opinion.
Very interesting. I'd like to see how that develops. And one thing that you triggered with me that you raise is, I also don't like how, if we're going to kind of actually debate these considerations, I don't like that it results in like cherry picking of situations where we can and we can't. Yeah. Like in particular situations. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
There was legal case law on a house that was growing pot plants inside. They used this type of like sonar equipment to read into the building and see that they had heat lamps, and that this degree of heat lamp at this, showed that they were having a grow operation. It went so far to the Supreme Court to decide that the police can only use to search within. Because again, I never went inside, dog. I just used this radar and I saw that you had super heat lamps that can only be used for pot plants. The Supreme Court decided you can only go so far as to what's regularly available to the public. So like, they could get a helicopter and look down and see like over your property, like, hey, this guy's got a whole garden back here.
Yeah.
But to get into, they can only use equipment that's regularly available to the public. It's very convenient for them to say, but at the same time, when they want to convict you for murder, it isn't regularly available. Not everybody's a billionaire that could pay off Amazon to get access to this household's Amazon Alexa to prove that the audio showed that she did, in fact, punch her spouse. Like, that is not publicly available. We still look the other way and let you do it. So there's a real cherry picking of these situations too.
Yeah, and when we write laws, I'm sure you know this as a lawyer. If you're going to be punished by said law, we got to know exactly what defining terms are, and it's got to be a neutral standard. We seem to be getting further and further away from that neutral standard. So any opportunity I think we can to bring that back to a more equal playing field where everyone's under the same understanding. I see it as a benefit, but definitely there is a case to be made about making it easier for criminals to get away with crime.
Let me open the door to one last thing.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts on a internal debate I've struggled with for the longest time. Anybody who is self-critical in the legal field should struggle with this. Why should you or do you need the right to privacy? Now roll with me.
Okay.
Insofar as you still can hold the state accountable, insofar as your laws are still real and enforceable and can be held against the state because the people haven't been totally disarmed of their power. So we're not talking about our situation in America. We're talking about a political theory here.
Okay.
In a world where you can still and accurately, easily hold the government accountable, why do you need the right to privacy? There was a world in like the 50s where you being gay in your bedroom could ruin your life. It could prevent you from being hired, having this political career or professional career in any facet. It was something that was so socially ostracized that it could actually damage you, but wasn't illegal, right? So here's a situation where your private bedroom, while doing something legal, could damage you to no end.
Okay.
That's not our society anymore. So now we live in a world where you're more praised for, you want to be a cat that scratches in a kitty litter box, we will praise you. So I'm curious, what do you need to preserve your right to privacy for that isn't illegal?
So we're going kind of under the argument of you have nothing to hide, why hide it?
Yeah.
A little bit. Well, I did. So let's go off with let's start your first point here of holding opinions or being gay. Being gay and society doesn't appreciate that. Well, I could easily see that as an anti-political statement. So I'm left center or I lean a little bit more left or right, depending on what the party in charge is. And now that's being used against me for political purposes, whether that even just be state jobs.
Interesting.
And we have,
and that's even more applicable today.
Yeah. And I see that as and it can go both ways too. So so let's paint a picture here. So we're in a county office. I want to be an accountant. Theoretically, that should be an unbiased job. You're working with numbers and theories that don't really have a whole lot of political sway. Well, turns out the office I'm working for is wildly conservative, and I'm a blue-haired liberal. I share all the opinions. I am out there, not necessarily on social media, but definitely in my own private group. I'm very vocal. I donate to charities or I donate to political organizations that I agree with, and now I come up for this job. I am ultimately qualified. Nothing about my demeanor or character seems unnatural for the position, but because the government has or at least the authority or the ability to be able to use this anti-privacy against me, now I'm like, we'll pass you over for another candidate.
I love you, man. I gotta say, I not to totally cut your point off quick, but I truly think that's been an unsolvable issue for me for years now.
Okay.
That's something I wrestled with in law school and beyond. And what you've really, this is how I articulated it to myself. And this is why it's a triggering point that I think you seriously put a nail in that coffin. What is that right? You have the right and freedom to portray yourself in any way you want versus who you actually are. And that is a freedom. You can be if you want to act Catholic and be Jewish. Like, you have the freedom to be pescatarian, but pretend you eat meat.
Yeah.
Like, that's America. You could say you've watched every season of Lost, but you quit because that shit got boring quick. That you're allowed. That's freedom.
Yeah.
There it is.
And I just see it as it's the ability, it's rights beyond or before government. Government does not enshrine my right to privacy. I had that before government. Government's here just to enforce it for those that, essentially enforce it for me, or others can't go against it.
Man, now that's a rethink tank solution.
Yeah.
You gave me an answer.
Big K knowledge right there.
All right, Brian, I got to concede one thing here, my friend. Let me take you off of mute so you can wallow in it a bit. I got so confused why you were flashing and doing like he was trying to let us know that we were over time.
Uh-oh.
And I forgot that we were trying to keep. I'm too used to one format.
I was like, ooh, what's this flash button do? And I was like, oh no, that's way too much. And then you're like, Brian's got something to say. I'm like, no, I don't. Just trying to just signal to you what's going on.
But I was like, why the hell did he indicate and got nothing to say? No, he was trying to let my dumbass know that wrap it up. We've been going.
There you go. The next topic here.
All right, to the next. And let's get to our next and final topic here. So my good friend David, he's going to take the wheel on explaining this one. We're kicking off the wrapping up Labor Day with a great Labor Day topic.
So I'm going to start with a hot take I do have. I think every holiday should be Labor Day. Because ultimately, we really should celebrate two things as a country here: the working class and the founding of this country. So
Woo!
Labor Day is a special holiday that I do hold very dearly. What I think is very interesting now, we're coming off of kind of tail end of the Great Resignation, so to call it. I think there's a lot of ramifications that COVID in itself had. One of them being is the empowerment of labor. So what we're seeing with, you see this with the dispersion of wealth between, like the 1%, 99%, and the inequalities that comes with. One of the things we've had because of the consolidation of power with corporate interests and business structures, labor just really hasn't been keeping up. So we're seeing with unions, and we're seeing a more kind of empowered labor force. We just had the Teamsters have a real big win with UPS over not necessarily over, they're working with UPS. That's the whole thing. It's a joint venture, but we're seeing rates of pay go up. So with this Labor Day, I want to discuss to you here, get your thoughts and opinions here about union labor, and not necessarily all exclusively unions, just in general, like worker power, and how we're seeing a resurgence. Do you think this is going to last? Do you think this is just a flash in the pan right now? Or, do we have any other opinions outside of that?
I think this is going to last. It's the format or the way it suggests itself may always evolve, but also at the same time, people communicating with each other and working with each other is never going to go away. So here's the delicate balance you have here. The employer never wants you guys to talk about what you're making because he's financially incentivized in one, pinning you all against each other, two, underpaying those that should be overpaid. And if you knew how much you were getting underpaid versus somebody that's just been there longer but is crap, you'd have a lot more negotiating power and could cause a lot of problems for somebody that's totally taking advantage of your productivity. Yep. I see the value in that, and I see the need in that. We got to do that. Or you should, as an employee, want that. And also see, whether you agree with it or not, at least see why the employer is going to try to stop that. Yep. On the flip side of it, though, too, I've seen a lot of dumb anecdotal symptoms to unions, whether you want to admit it or not. There's, mandatory smoke breaks leads to it's a slippery, it's human faculties and their deficiencies, and these slippery roads leads to now you've made it could be you've made this unworkable. We just can't get anything done now, or I get nothing out of you, or you've stripped the main thing. Back to why you like Labor Day and what makes this such a fruitful country and makes labor in this country so special is now you've stripped Joe Schmo person B's ability to compete because they have to match you and abide by their agreement with you all the time. This guy who comes in better, Mexican, climbs the fence, wants to work harder than you, longer than you, for cheaper than you. It sounds like you cheated a little bit here. So I respect where it brings protections. I respect where it brings balance to the negotiating table. At the same time, though, going totally unchecked, humans, here's what I learned through the pandemic.
Okay.
There were too many of my friends that were career driven and had a lot going for them that the second they could get free money, stopped. That those ambitions came to a complete halt in people I thought it would never be the case. It happened. So I just want to say, while I'm a dog, that dog wants your rib that you're eating at dinner. It wants the meatloaf. It wants it all. But it will eat it all. It will also eat itself to death. So what is your role in the life of that dog that you love? Is giving it not, yeah, okay. Did we give the dog for a birthday a Swenson's burger once? Yeah, it was funny and the dog loved it. At the same time, it was one time and my sister won't ever let us do it again. And there's a balance. Like, you know what it does to the dog. You know that one's not going to kill you, but even two is probably a problem and you should tread lightly. That's what I'm talking about in these scenarios. When it comes to this, I like rebalancing the negotiating table, but I also have seen, kind of like communism, I've yet to see a union in its final state still be thriving perfectly and protecting everybody safely.
You know what? You do bring up a pretty good point here. I think part of the Reaganomics with busting unions was the inefficiencies in which they don't work well and can absolutely cripple business when they're, because it's a bit of a zero-sum game. It's a lot of, I got mine, well, you have yours, well, eventually you stop having yours and I can no longer get mine.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see, here's what these unions are really fighting for the person, where 10 years ago, we'll just, if a corporation's still here, we still get a little bit of ours. Don't rock the boat too much. So there is, you're right. There is a balance. There is a.
Let me share a story here.
Okay.
So I'm giving a little bit behind baseball. The judge that I work for, she was a very successful attorney representing unions. And one story she tells me all the time, and it's a huge indicator about people and a fun lesson about being when you find yourself in an employment, like you're an employer situation. There was negotiations between this employment and the union that she represented. And it went on for months and it was becoming starving and it was getting to a make or break point where they either needed to make an agreement or everything came crumbling. And at its final level, when it was totally discussed, all negotiations were settled and brought to its end the second they added free coffee.
Really?
So what are you going to say? You're going to go, back in that day, the conditions were so bad, they just wanted freaking coffee. At the same time, though, it goes to show we're simpletons and like, just give them a donut. Like you don't really need to make it that much better. Just give them a donut. But then also, okay, today's a donut. Okay, tomorrow's a donut and eggs. Yep. Then it's donut, eggs, pizza for lunch. and it's a ride to work. It's a sliding, it's a snowball effect.
Yep.
So one, it speaks to human nature. Get coffee and we're like goldfish, just the next shiny thing. Oh, I got coffee. I'm happy. I can't feed my family. Oh, but I got coffee. The day's not going to suck as bad. I got coffee. The day didn't change. The pay didn't change, but I got coffee.
Yep.
At the same time, though, from the employer's perspective, like sometimes just a little bit of give and take goes a long way, and you could make a huge impact on the people that are doing a lot for you by just listening to them and trying to make it more enjoyable or livable for them.
Yeah, I think the other negative part of unions here, not to just be a cheerleader for them, is I think public sector unions can be dangerous in a certain way. I personally go back and forth on this. Should the private citizen, if they do work for the government or for a federal agency, should they have the ability to organize their labor and have their voice against the employer, which would be taxpayer, the government? Yeah, you should. However, the unions are only in favor of those within that particular organization, and it's kind of a single direction with that union. It's like the police unions. You want to see them be protected even when they fail.
Yeah.
There's the accountability. Well, unions are very good at holding the business, the employer, or the taxpayers responsible. They're not very good at holding their own rank and file responsible, even when they cause their own certain issues. And that's what they're inherently, it's what they're designed for. They're designed for them. But that goes against me as another private citizen. If a cop, teacher, or have other different public sector unions, but those two in particular, when those go awry, that goes against me. That goes against my rights. It goes against my personal responsibility, and I don't think we hold them to the same standard as we should be. There's definitely that's where I come back and forth on. Like there is an opportunity to be better here, but it cuts directly against them as well.
I could agree. And it's always going to be a two-way street. That's why it's important to keep a balance. Here's the reality. You guys are the labor force. If you walk out, they've got nothing. So that's the end all be all.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, we're in a weird place, man. Nobody wants to work. So there used to be a world where, fine, we'll just find somebody else. Comes back to my point about lost ambitions in highly professional people the second they get. You ever hear of like there's a hamster experiment, and they put cocaine in water for hamsters, or no, it was rats.
It was rats,
and it was totally unlivable. There was not enough food. There was too many rats in too small of a space, and the rats would drink the cocaine water to death. The second you had a cage where there were plenty of toys, plenty of space, plenty of food, the rats never even concerned themselves with the cocaine water. So the takeaway from that was how, living in an unlivable condition and making it miserable can really drive habits and negative influences more than otherwise would be there or would be entertained. I think drawing this to the union situation, you don't want to make it so unlivable that people just can't they can't wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally have created law to change the time for everyone twice a year, because we know if we have you driving in the dark, tired, you're going to question and second guess the rat race we had, the hamster wheel we have you stuck in.
Yeah.
We cannot afford for you to second guess the hamster wheel. So we're going to change existence an hour to make it more comfortable, so you don't wake up to how we've got you in slavery.
Yep.
Analogous to this situation, okay, give them a cup of coffee, they'll keep their head down and keep working.
Yeah.
That isn't healthy. You want these people to talk about their experience. Hey, man, what's going on with you? Wait, you got coffee and I don't? So let's get back to the first question you started the whole dialogue.
Let me touch on one of their points there. Is I think that's part of the reason why those who don't want to work, that's the I think that's the symptom. The ultimate symptom is
they're lazy freaking bums, dude.
There's some that are absolutely
dude,
lazy.
You could be ambitious and do, dude. I want to be a podcaster. Guess what? That doesn't pay the bills. So I got a miserable 8 hours before this fun time.
Yeah,
that sucks, man. So for the guy that wants to be a painter and is drudging through, I don't know, being an Avis Rent-A-Center manager, that sucks for you, but how bad do you want it? See, that's the problem, is we spend all day sucking up endorphins, going through Instagram, seeing the women we want, but we don't want to hit the gym or put down the donut, seeing the cars we want and the lifestyle we want, but we don't want to work for it. We just want Big Daddy government to tax Bezos and give it to me. Here's the problem. You can't make a game. The game being something that gives you medicine, cures these cancers we're talking about, gives you the iPhone in the palm of your hand, all of these amazing developments that came from capitalism. You can't take the fruit of a game and then damn the couple people that are winning the game. They're doing the best of the game, and you go, whoa, 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 you're too good. At the same time, though, there's a balance to all of this, and you can't have free people owning it all. The man that created the game, Monopoly, created the game to show that capitalism always results in one person owning everything. Okay.
And you can't have the winners of the game controlling the rules of the game. That's the other. That's the other half of it as well.
Totally.
You don't want them. I'm all for a free market, but it's no longer a free market when those who have the power and the sway to be able to control the market to their benefit at the expense of those that help them get to that point in general. It's not, I don't think billionaires necessarily shouldn't exist, but steal all their money, but they definitely, I'd be very surprised if there was a billionaire out there that didn't try to sway the rules of the game to make it so that they're better off in their positions today.
Brian, do you have something? I know before I kind of address that. I'm sorry, man.
I just kind of wanted to bring up the rat study. I wasn't looking at it, but if I remember right, they did one with cocaine, one with heroin, and when they were isolated, they took enough to kill themselves. And like they also did it with having miserable condition and all that. They ended up dying because they took too much. But as soon as they were around a community and they had things to do, they left those waters as is and they moved on.
Yeah.
And they would dabble here and there and for fun, but they wouldn't overdo it in any capacity.
But see, I like that. It's a good segue to, I was going to bring it back to the question you opened this dialogue with. Okay. And that's, you asked me where I think this goes. And I gave you kind of an attorney's answer where it's a balance between these two different things. But the major point is this. What did I say? I don't know what they'll look like, but I don't think they're ever going to go away. And I think they'll only get stronger or they may get weaker, but they're going to evolve. They're going to continue to change. They're going to be in different formats. But why? Why do I say that? We are at the greatest interconnectivity of the human hive. Oh, and so back to what the employer is incentivized in, dividing and dissolving communication. I don't need you comparing your salary notes with the desk next to you. So I'm going to be incentivized and doing everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. Well, guess what? When I've got Snapchat, the ability to text them, to grab drinks after, they're following me on X, you will never break the we are now permanently intertwined.
Yep. This genie's out of the bottle. It's not coming back in. Internet is now, for better or for worse, forever.
So again, I don't need to, in 1920, get the whole crew of guys, some of them drunks, lonely, some of them need to get home to families. I got to convince a whole crew of dudes to meet the third Wednesday of every month at the local pub or whatever to compare notes, create a plan, and devise a cohesive approach to our employer. We can make a Facebook group. I mean, it's only going to get easier. Now, at the same time, we agreed there has to be some sort of ebb and flow to that, and a restriction, and not a restriction, but a way of corralling that beast.
Yeah, and enforcement of the rules.
And I think that'll inevitably that's what will be what drives its evolution. It will change, but that'll be what drives that change.
Yeah.
What are your rapid thoughts?
I think what we've seen with unions is that every time we have a new kind of a powerful position, unions in the country, it moves the goalpost of working conditions. Well, the reason why we have kind of 2 weeks is somewhat standard as far as vacation times, minimum wage. A lot of that was driven by unions of the past, working conditions, OSHA, a lot of that unions in the past. Now, what's going to be the new unions of the past? Is it not using AI for automation?
Ooh.
We're seeing
the
that
writers,
with the Screen Actors Guild. Is it to the point where you own your own privacy within the company? There's a couple different things that I think in a digital age we're going to see a very big digital footprint on this. Where is it going to end and where's it going to shake out? I don't know yet. I think a lot of it's going to depend globally. Because I think whatever, for the most part, you have the European side of things, which I think they're going to skew a bit more liberal, a bit more pro-populist, pro-individual. Where you have kind of like the East with China, I even said like Japan a little bit as well, where you're maybe pro-imperial, pro the overall the good of the population. How do those two ideologies clash? And when we're kind of stuck in the middle here in the United States, we're in a very interesting time, right? We may not know it, but we really are on the cusp of a very formative next about decade here with labor rights.
Not just labor rights, but life. I mean, we are at a turning point in human existence. Back to kind of what I've leaned on by making my point. This is the first time in human history a rock of people are all talking to each other in real time. It's not sending the carrier pigeon or a boat with a messenger. It's right now the Notre Dame church is burning. Like that of instantly. It doesn't take a decade, or even weeks to get to you. But that's going to be what's fun about living, right? Like I'm sure when they made the printing press, they thought it was pretty pinnacle too. And the person with the brain chip thought that was nothing. So who knows what's to come when we go transhuman. Brian, before we wrap up here, I got to ask anybody in the comments, what do we got here? What's the story?
Just another day TV. He's been
what's up, Ricky?
Yeah, Ricky.
Guys in the comments, if you're still here, I think I see a couple people still watching.
Yeah.
If there's any topics that you'd like for us to hit or you want to see us hit for next week, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Or if you're still live right now, we'd love to entertain some questions or comments.
Oh, I'd love to know what the audience wants us to talk about.
Right, exactly.
We got 4 people watching right now.
I love it. I love it. Otherwise, guys, Brian, you have any wrapping thoughts for us?
I do have a tangent. Make sure you get your Epic passes, Ohio passes for snowboarding and ski season. Those will be closing as soon as the season starts.
When does the season start, Brian?
In the next couple months.
I just got to ask, what is your financial incentive in people going? I feel bad because he had to fix the camera as I ask him this question.
Multitasking over here. All right. As soon as the season starts, you cannot purchase a season pass, and a day pass is $60.
What do you care about somebody else? Like, that's what I just love. Just a public service announcement.
Hey, everyone, please go to Disneyland so I can wait in line.
This guy wants you to have a good time. I love it.
You go like 5 times and you get your money's worth. And that's not hard in like a 70-day season.
There's no producer in the game that cares more about your fun time than Brian.
Yeah. Well, good advice here.
I love it.
I'm off in La La Land. I'm sorry.
No, did anybody drop in the comments anything?
We got any
No?
Ricardo said, "Bless up to the family."
That's what's up. Bless up, Ricky. We love you, man.
Yep.
Otherwise, guys, thank you for joining us. It was a good first one.
It was a good first
one. You know, where we got a lot of fun things coming your way. But if we made you laugh, if we made you think, the best thing you could do to support the show, besides commenting with us in the live show and getting yourself involved in the dialogue, is to share this episode. We're combating algorithms, and the best thing you could do is to take that and send it around to the people you love. Because if you like it, that means somebody else you know does too. What do you got, Brian?
Oh, Ricky's been asking, how does this 1770 set?
Dude, I'm glad you talk about it because I almost got to bring something up. So
That's the James E. Pepper, right?
that is
All
James. That's what he was asking about?
Yep.
Man, he's good. Ricky, you're good with the James E. Pepper. It's a rye. I like ryes. Do you want to try a sip?
I'll try a little sip.
Please.
Let me give my.
You gotta clear that nonsense out. You had the Sazerac rye, so we unintentionally had a theme to the night.
two rise.
But I just want to acknowledge, if I forgot to at the beginning of the episode, can we appreciate that in good Rethink Tank fashion, we're enjoying our bourbon in margarita glasses.
To the
late and great.
cheeseburger in paradise.
To the cheese. What do you think? I like rye because to me, ryes have more flavor.
It's got a bit more bite on the back end, like the front end's smooth, like the back end's a little.
Yeah.
It's got a little more, you know, like that little snake, a little more bite to this. This is kind of a little more smooth, kind of all the way through.
If you want to compare me to David, my comment is going to be something that I adopted from my dad from being a child. It would be, well, that's what puts hair on your chest.
Oh,
but
yeah.
David doesn't need much more of that, and I
No,
could use probably a lot more
I'm-
burn.
I'm
So
pretty good there. Just don't want it to spread. I saw some
it's
guy
when
at
it
the
gets to your
pool.
shoulders.
Oh, that's exactly what I saw. Some guy at the pool. It's like, oh, geez, what woman looks at some guy's hairy shoulders and go, oh my god, that's what I want tonight. Oh, that's just so unattractive. I'm glad
Keep
it's
you
not
warm
quite
on the
there yet.
slopes, huh?
Yeah.
Yo. So, any final thoughts on the rye, the margarita rye?
Well, margarita rye.
7076 because we're free here in the Rethink Tank.
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good. I get a recommend for them. I'd buy one of these.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. Anyway, guys, if it made you laugh, if it made you think, the best thing you do is support the show. That was a lot of bourbon slurring. The best thing you do is support the show is share this episode. Otherwise, guys, catch all of our content on our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. We're going live every Tuesday. I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of dropped the ball with all this. Dallas's episode comes out this Thursday. I assure you, it is one of the most entertaining
Is this
conversations.
the
we've
infamous
had.
episode 69?
Well, we lay the groundwork for. There's a lot of talk about that episode, and it lays the groundwork because it comes out in 2 more weeks. When episode 100 comes out, 69 comes out too, and it's gonna be infamous, and it's gonna be $1 because I don't want my boss to see it. So prepare for 69 when it comes. But there's new episodes of the podcast coming out on Thursdays. We got more content. Click on over to our clip show. You see all the fun content. But guys, please, this is the only thing we have to ask. This is fun for all of us, and it's so much more fun when you're involved. And you get hats off to Ricky. Hats off to the people that join in. Getting a dialogue going here in your comments, that's what makes us fun. I need the opposition, not only for the challenge, but to keep it fun. And so, not only do you get to have an input, but it keeps us on our toes and keeps this show real. So the only last thing that I ask is for input and getting involved because we're excited to have it and we're excited to really get that user engagement. Any thoughts from you, David, where they can find you? Anything else?
Where they can find me? Oh, geez. If I remember my Instagram name, I think it's David Cunningham 7712. I think it might be my Instagram handle. We'll have to see. I'll remember it here for next time. But no, this has been good. We had some good conversation here today. Poured one out here for our boy Jimmy and Brian. It's wonderful to have you here as well.
Thank you, David. Likewise, I enjoy being here and smashing buttons all over the place.
Where can they find you?
B Seamall on Instagram, Brian Seamall on Snapchat, B Smalls on Twitter.
All right, guys. Catch you on the next episode. Peace.